experts, and ladies and gentlemen. It's with great pleasure that we welcome you to the 34th inaugural lecture in the prestigious Inaugural Lecture Series, proudly brought to you by the Faculty of Graduate Studies of the University of Moritua. To formally commence today's session, I respectfully invite Professor Nilas Pereira from the University of Moritua to introduce our professor for the day, who will be Professor Amila Thibbotuwawa from the Department of Transport Management and Logistic Engineering from the Faculty of Engineering of the University of Moritua.
Senior Professor Ruan Gopura, Dean of the Faculty of Graduate Studies. Professor Amila Thibbotuwawa, Professor in Logistics Engineering of the Department of Transport Management and Logistics Engineering. Dear colleagues from the department and beyond, and members in the audience. It brings me enormous privilege to introduce my long-term friend and colleague, Professor Amila Thibbotuwawa, as for his inaugural lecture. So Professor Amila and I go a long way back, and I will cherish those memories, and I'll share important milestones of his career as I lead up to the most important part of this evening, that is Professor Amila's inaugural lecture. So this slide is something that he wanted me to share. So I'm actually sharing because he requested it, that there are dynamic duos that are very important in making some impacts. And when two people work together cohesively, great things happen. And we are of the view that the two of us are sort of like that, and who have an interlaced history, present, and a future together. So I think that gives me a unique perspective in introducing today's speaker. So I got to know Amila in 2008 when I entered the university as an undergraduate. We haven't changed much, I hope. We still are quite handsome, I guess. And back in the day, I think the two of us became very good friends from the get-go because we had very similar beliefs. And I still remember, I think it was November of 2008, where we, both of us, faced our fears. At that point, we were afraid of public speaking. And the two of us took this leap of faith and had this chat and said, right, let's go and start working on improving our public speaking. And Amila was there with me when we went to a particular function, and we started that journey. And I think Amila achieved a lot throughout that journey. In university, I think Amila was a very unique character. He was someone who was having passions about various things from the get-go. He was not the traditional student, I would say. He was very inquisitive. He was someone who understood that university is not just about the curriculum, but it's about going beyond the curriculum and learning about what is at large, developing theories, developing different aspirations about how things work, not just in transport and logistics, but in even beyond that. I very clearly remember when we were in first year, he was very curious about learning psychology. And at that point, I was amused by this. Why learn about psychology coming from a mathematical background and being students in transport and logistics? I was quite puzzled by it. And his perspective was that psychology plays an important role in anything in life. And understanding how people believe things, aspire things, and work towards their goals is very important in any scientific field. That was very inspirational. And quite frankly, it's very interesting that later on, he himself and I also ended up doing a lot of research focusing on behavioral sciences and its application on transport and logistics. I think when we entered transport and logistics in 2008, it was an unknown field. We were from the third batch. Amila had a very high Z score, unlike me. He could have gone to other disciplines, but he chose TLM with a purpose because he had a passion. I think at that time, his passion was public transport. Later, it became aviation. After that, it became maritime, and few years later, it became supply chain and logistics. And I think one of the beautiful things about his life in university was that he had a lot of challenges also. His father, his beloved father, went through some uh, challenges, health challenges. And in spite of that, he was very focused on his study. In certain semesters, I remember, he managed to maintain 80% attendance, look after and take care of his father, and also achieve Dean's List, which speaks volumes of his immense skill. So in 2013, after several delays in the university system, we graduated together. Uh, those are photos from that particular year, and both of us graduated with a first class. You might think that we agree on everything in life. That's barely the case. Well, at least we disagree twice a year. One is at Rhythm Divine in selecting the song that we are supposed to sing publicly. And once is at the big match because we come from rival schools. So apart from that, we generally tend to agree on most of the things, but with a lot of discussion and deep conversations. So Amila was born in Gaul in southern Sri Lanka. He had his primary education at the Mahinda College in Gaul, and from his scholarship exams, he got selected to Ananda College, Colombo, where he wanted to do bio and become a doctor. There's a very interesting story. So he was planning to become a doctor. He was very, very keen on becoming a medical doctor. I'm saying a medical doctor. I have to emphasize on that. And he had gone on a trip, and that during that trip, the students at Anand College were supposed to select the stream that they were going to do. And Amila's father had gone to school, and he and Amila's mother had discussed and said, Amila is not suitable to do bio. He's suitable to do maths because he's good at maths and he's not very good at studying. So by hearting, and that's how the fate changed. And against his wishes, he was pushed to do mathematics for A levels. It was a life changer, not only for him, but I think for the entire sector. And from the first year onwards, he had academic ambitions, which was very unique. His email address was dramila@gmail.com, which was very interesting. He wanted to do a PhD from the first year. I've never really met anyone like that in my life. And he was very passionate about learning new things, a very inquisitive student. And some of you in the audience may remember that he's one of those people who was asking a lot of tricky questions at the end of lectures. Most of us from his batch were a little annoyed by that because that cut the break in half. And sometimes it also meant that the lecturers also had to spend a little less time between lectures. But he was a very inquisitive personality from the get go. And I think it's no surprise that he has achieved such tremendous heights. One of the unique things about him is he's a master of smart work, as I said. He's not someone who's a hard worker who works like 20 hours a day. Maybe now you do, perhaps, but generally that's not the case. He always finds a very effective and efficient way to get things done without expending too much energy, without wasting too much energy. I think that's a very unique skill that he possesses. Now, one of the interesting things I think a lot of academics who know Amila does not know is that he is actually someone with a very wide industry perspective. He has worked in different industries, in the maritime industry, in shipping. He has worked in the apparel industry. He is a certified lean practitioner. He has worked in the tire industry, in the aerospace and defense industry. So different dynamic industries has been touched throughout his career, and not just in Sri Lanka, but across the world as well. That speaks volumes to his versatility, which I feel is a rare talent in the modern world. And I've seen how he uses those experiences from multiple workspaces to be a very pragmatic academic at the University of Moratuwa. And that is a cornerstone of his success. one of the unique points of his career that he is uh, very happy about, and we are very proud about, is the Campus France scholarship. This is a very unique opportunity presented by the French government to one Sri Lankan every year. I think in 2014 he was working at MS Slimline in Pannala. He was the selected Sri Lankan for the Campus France scholarship to do a Master of Engineering in Supply Chain and Transport Optimization at the IMT Atlantic. Um, and the unique thing is, usually this scholarship is offered only once for one person in the entire life. Amila is one of the unique characters who have won it twice in his life. So that's another unique milestone. Uh, Usually that doesn't happen. The reason is because of his excellent scholarly conduct. The government was so impressed, they said they would want to renew the scholarship. After that, he worked in the industry for a while in Europe with various organizations. He was working in Paris, just next to the Eiffel Tower. I was in Australia at that time, so early morning in Australia and late night in France, we would usually have calls to discuss about life. And he was enjoying a very luxurious life in Europe, but he was very passionate about giving back to Sri Lanka, which was one reason that he chose to return to Sri Lanka. And one of the fantastic things about Amila is he comes from a unique family background. He has a brother and a sister, and all three of them have PhDs. That's quite unique. That's a very rare achievement, and all three of them are very highly cited academics. So it runs in the family, literally, I guess. And I think it's a it's a thing that his parents would be very proud about. Amila is always helpful. He's always smiling. He's very open-minded. He has great rapport with people. Very hard to fluster him. He rarely gets angry, and I think one of the unique characteristics about him is he has sympathetic joy. He finds joy in other people's happiness. I think that's a rare quality that a lot of people in the world um, do not have nowadays. But I believe that he is one of those unique individuals who will always try to go the extra mile to help the other person, the person next door, and find happiness through that. Um, and without any surprise, you would know that Amila has a unique global research network. He is well connected to academics around the world in logistics who have a fantastic understanding of various facets of logistics. And that has led to numerous great collaborations, which has resulted in highly impactful publications. I think one of the things that I recognized yesterday while doing research for this is that if you go to Google Scholar, Amila is the #1 ranked researcher in terms of logistics engineering as a specialized area in the world. And that's something I think the University of Moratuwa should be proud about. He has more, no one else has more citations under that specialization than Amila in the world. So that's a unique thing, which I think we need to celebrate separately perhaps in a different forum. He's the most cited academic of our department, a tier 4-star tier researcher under the UGC guidelines, with over 1,000 citations, which is still growing, and an H index of 20. And this has actually meant that Amila is someone who's widely recognized, especially in the logistics fields, and more particularly in the drone logistics area, where most of the research that are carried out, even now, often cite Amila's contributions during his PhD at the Aalborg University in Denmark. So he is definitely a household name in the world of drone logistics. And I think University of Moratuwa and the department is very proud to have Amila as part of our faculty. So I think I've given a basic introduction to who this person is. Amila Thibbotuwawa, or rather Thibbotuwa Gamage Amila Idune, as the long name goes. Um, and if I want to, I can probably speak even more and share even further intimate details about his career and his life. But I think that is not the purpose of today's inaugural lecture. Today's inaugural lecture, as Professor Priyanda's introductory videos summarized, is about understanding the philosophy and the viewpoint about smart logistics that Professor Amila shares, and what the world in general can gain from a more futuristic smart logistics system. And therefore, without further ado, I'd like to invite my good friend and colleague, Professor Amila Thibbotuwawa, to deliver his inaugural lecture as a professor in logistics engineering at the Department of Transport Management and Logistics Engineering at the University of Moratuwa. I think the title of the presentation is The Future of Smart Logistics. Amila, over to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Nilas, for the wonderful introduction. And so, Senior Professor Gopura, Dean FGS, and all the senior academics are presented here, and all the non-academic staff, and my dear friends, and my dear students, right? So now I'll be taking like a little bit of your time, your valuable time, to do this, inaugural lecture, which is I'm quite privileged and honored to do this. So I've chosen the topic of futures of smart logistics, which is one of the areas which is very close to my heart. So I hope that you will be bearing with me during this time. And so to start it, Professor Neil has covered quite a lot of about me. So this is kind of a snapshot, kind of a blueprint of my profile. So I work in different countries, in different universities around the world, and also I work in different industries, different companies around the world. So which have made who I am today. So I have quite a bit of like over a decade of experience in this. And so Nilesh mentioned in my story, I was born in Goa. So I was initially went to Mahindra College, and then after 6, I came to Ananda, which is my mother Ananda. And so I was doing my A-levels there. And so I was so fortunate to be a student of Mother Anand. So it actually crafted me quite a lot for the person who I am today. And then in the physical science stream, we did the A-levels. And we were so fortunate to come into Faculty of Engineering in Moratuwa. And so we have the best university life. So we had lots of fun activities to do, lots of clubs that we were involved. You can see the pictures. For example, we didn't have a building for us like in the department. So it was this building actually. We used to have also lectures. And so we were used to study in the ground. You can see in the picture. And also you can see a little bit of younger version of me. I quite look the same, I know. And and after that, actually having the best university time, then we graduated having first class honors. And then after my graduate start, like BSc, initially I wanted to join the university as well, because the professors those days, they quite invited me to join the department as well. At the same time, there were some pressure from one of the Gurujis here who was sitting, Dr. Anil as well, and some of the others, to join the industry as well. So that's why I joined MS Holdings. And that is also one of the places, it's like a small university as well, MS, where there's lots of room to learn and grow. So I was doing lots of process improvement projects there. And I was working with consultants, for example, directly from Toyota, and learned quite a lot and got lots of local and foreign training. And we won these, for example, the CILT challenge. I was the lead of that winning team. It was quite a remarkable time. I became a certified lean trainer. I was training other people. So I was having the best of my time. But again, the life changed because I had to apply for this scholarship that Vanilas was telling. That is actually was coming from my brother, who was already a student at the university as a mechanical engineer. So he has already started his PhD. So he was asking me to apply for this. So I was telling lots of excuses because I was really enjoying the industry, but somehow everybody was pressurizing me. So I applied for this, and this is the only scholarship that I applied apparently. But I was so fortunate to got this one and study in one of the best engineering schools in France. which is called the Mint. And this is the place I was exposed to the beautiful world of mathematical programming and optimization. So I started likeness towards this. And so after my master's, I was working in Paris, close to Eiffel Tower, as a supply chain engineer. There I was working for Camps of France, which is a French-Canadian company. And I was like involved in different countries as well, doing lots of interesting projects where I could build a very strong network in Europe. Sometimes still I use that connections in our, even things like when our curricular development, even our deliveries of our lectures, we get them. So it was really nice. So again, I was back to industry. So I was really enjoying my time in industry. But then again, destiny changed because I had to start a PhD because everybody around me, like my siblings, they initially started their PhD. So I was going to be the unmatching one in the family kind of thing. And also my colleagues like Nilas and even like Dr. Anil, like whenever I visited Sri Lanka, they were telling me, you should come to Sri Lanka. Please do not come back to Sri Lanka without doing a PhD. So then I applied for some and got selected actually for some few like offers from different universities and selected this one because it was an industrial PhD in Airbus. So I was working with their projects in Munich, Germany, but my university was in Denmark. So I could travel quite a lot of in Europe. So I was pretty happy about it. And it was a really diversified experience. I could learn from different organizations. At the same time, I would teach and do some research as well. And I finished getting my PhD in mechanical and manufacturing engineering, and then came back to Sri Lanka just before COVID and got stuck. And then again, the university captured me, and then I became a member of the same TLM family, I would say. So I initially offered my service as a senior lecturer on honorary basis, which is I'm really proud of even now. So those days, university was under lots of challenges with financial difficulties and all, but still I offered my service as an honorary lecturer without getting any money. But then I became a senior lecturer eventually, and then a professor. But during this time, we could contribute in different avenues, especially when our degree program was transferring into a fully fledged engineering degree. I could like take the leadership in especially logistics engineering domain. And we also co-founded the Center for Supply Chain Operation and Logistics Optimization, which is one of the like interesting centers you can find in our university, where we have members from our department, other faculties. We have members from other universities in the country, and also we have around like partners around 20 other global universities around the world, where we can do like world-class research from Sri Lanka. And also like we could get some interesting grants as well to our university. That is one of the big achievements because we didn't have money to develop our laboratories and things like that. But successfully with Professor Nilas, we could get these grants, and it was really helpful to grow for ourselves and for our students and the department and the university. And it was really interesting. And also because my roots are like from Europe, and also like we had lots of other interesting colleagues in the department who have lots of good connections in Europe. We could do lots of international collaboration and getting some MOUs and funding to do capacity building across Sri Lanka. And there were lots of international collaborations. You know, some of these are one of the giants in our domain of research. And it was really fascinating. So these platforms enabled our students to work in diversified international collaborations. And also some of the students from other countries, like from Scandinavia, they came to visit us, and they did some of their part of their PhDs under our supervision in Sri Lanka as well. It was like some of the interesting parts of our international collaborations. And I'm working with some other state universities of the country as well. And so quite closely, and currently I'm like honorary like visiting professor. I'm an honorary professor in University of Peradeniya as well. I'm working for them as well, and also we are working closely with the industry, especially to build the capacity of our students, where we should ensure a smooth transformation from the graduate life to the industry world. So we are doing lots of interesting projects that we are quite happy about. Yeah, and some other so many different things. And one of the interesting things, like when we initially started, there was no proper word for logistics, a single word. There was no word for logistics. So we introduced a single word actually to logistics, which is called Carvopai. This is one of the interesting things that we could do. And also I could contribute in different like ministries in their advisory committees in different various aspects. And also like I was in like judge panels in different logistics awards like throughout these years. It was pretty interesting where I could do a national contribution, and also we could raise our voice, especially when the country was in difficult times. You know, we were doing lots of interesting things, and which I think when you look back and think we are really proud of actually. And also being an academic, especially in the department ELMLE, we could not only for the university, but we could do lots of contribution to the country as well, other stakeholders, especially when I was the staff advisor of the some of student bodies. We could do lots of things around Sri Lanka, even the difficult times, which is really interesting. And so these are some of my research partners in some other countries where we closely work with to do world-class research. And so like my publications, Nilesh was telling about it. So our research has been published on best journals, and we have won lots of awards internationally. And I have like quite a bit of book chapters as well, and a book as well, where I think this the interesting part behind this is like our students and their commitment and their dedication and their motivation. So because of this, like we have been able to effectively take the University of Morocco name to the global context as well, especially in the domain of supply chain and logistics. And so I'll come to the topic. So this is one of my interesting areas. Yeah, most of my publications actually are on this as well, especially drone logistics and other logistics areas. To start with, like, I would like to ask a question. For example, have you like missed a boat any time in your life? Have you missed an opportunity? I don't know. Maybe you might like someone when you are young, but you never like told them that you like them, and then you never met them again. I don't know. Or you might be thinking to invest to a business, but you're only thinking, but you never invested. But after some years, you found that this like business have become like like super, right? So these things which happens in our life, right? So it's quite common in supply chains as well, especially in supply chains and logistics, because that is one of the areas which is rapidly changing. There are lots of trends happening around the world. So if you do not grab that opportunities as a company, as an organization, as an individual, if you're working in logistics and supply chain, then it's the end of the story, right? So you will lose the business, you'll lose your journey. So that's one of the areas that I want to start with, because these things that I'll be talking about are some certain things like that. So keep an eye on it, especially if you are like related to supply chain and logistics, right? So what is a supply chain, right? So most of you might know what is a supply chain already, but it's an interesting concept, right? So for example, in this picture, you have a washing liquid. So you have supplier side, which is the upstream, and then you have the customer side, which is downstream. So it's a kind of a chain. So normally these materials are flowing from the upstream to the downstream, and the money flows from the downstream to the upstream, and the information flow happens like unit here and there, everywhere. And the interesting part is even now you don't have this very linear supply chains. For example, now people talk about circular supply chains. They talk about reuse, reproduce, and all the rewords, right? And then you have reverse logistics happening. So it has made these supply chains very complex day to day. So this is actually where the beauty of supply chain relies as well. So if you take any product, if you take, for example, I don't know, you have a bottle here, so you can see that. So if you take the price of this bottle, like if you go and buy from a shop, like this will be around 100 rupees, right? But have you ever thought like what can be the manufacturing cost of it? Like what could be the pure profit of this, and what can be the supply chain cost of this? Have you ever thought? For example, even if you can buy this for like 100 rupees, to entire manufacturing cost, like the water comes free from nature. Of course, then economies of scale is like it will be few cents. And if you take the lid, the plastic, and this is also plastic and some labels, maximum 1 or 2 rupees would be total manufacturing cost, right? And then all the remaining costs, where does these cost functions are coming from? So that is the problem. So if you analyze carefully, it depends, of course, depending on the industry to industry changes. The supply chain costs in most of the cases are even more than 40%, even more than 50% in some cases. So if you are running a business and running a company, of course, you do this because you want to maximize the profit end of the day, right? So if you want to maximize the profit, the best way you can maximize the profit either to increase the price or reduce the cost. But you cannot increase the price because it's a competitive environment. You must reduce the cost. So in this cost, if you analyzed, the major component of the cost is supply chain, right? So if you know how to reduce this supply chain cost, end of the day, what happens? You will be happy, your bosses will be happy, your company will be happy because it will gain lots of profit. So you can get lots of bonuses and you can climb the ladder so fast and become, directors of the company. It's simple as that, right? And in supply chains, one of the most important areas of supply chain is like logistics. It's like the heart and brain of it. So you have the main areas of logistics here, which is transportation. You have pipelines, railroad, air, water, transport logistic operations happening. And then one of the major areas are inventory and warehouse management, which goes hands to hand. And you have this information management with big data analytics, AI, and data-driven technologies. Decision-making tools is quite very popular. And you have packaging, which is quite important in logistics, and security. Nowadays, you talk about cyber security. So these are the main elements of logistics. So today, I'll be mainly focusing about the first three elements because of limited time, and I'll try to show some of the trends in these domains and some of the interesting and important figures. And I'll start with logistics hubs, right? For example, if you want to do logistics, there are two main things that you have to consider. One is passenger logistics. Even passengers can be, treated into logistics, and freight logistics, which is good logistics, right? So if you take one of the examples, this is one of the example from Paris, the railway stations, the small railway station, we call it La Défense. So you can see in this railway station itself, there are like several layers, like 5 layers. So this is one of the areas that most officers are located. Even this is not the big main railway station. This is something which is far away. But even that you can see, like if you go downstairs, like in the bottom level, the two sides, you can even travel to other countries. For example, these yellow and blue trains are the SNCF, which is the fast traveling trains. For example, from Paris to Brussels to even to other countries, you can easily travel. And you have access to this location from this center as well. In the right side, you have the regional trains where you can travel within Paris, within France, normally double deckers. If you go, you can look around as well. It's beautiful. And then like you have the access even from a small railway station. And one step above, you have the metros or the subways. In Paris, you have like 13 metro lines, which is fully connected to Paris. You can go anywhere from that. And then one step above, you have the bus connection in the same station. Most of these buses are hydrogen buses, so it has connectivity. Likewise, so even when you design a small station, as well, you have to think. If you think as a logistic hub, like we also have some logistics hub like Makumbura multimodal connection center, like that is also small scale. But these things should be like nicely connected to facilitate the multimodal connectivity, intermodal connectivity. If that's the case, only then you can have the benefits, right? And it's quite same with the passenger side as well. For example, this is from Luxembourg, one of my favorite logistic freight hubs. You can see the air connections, water, like maritime connections, and the railway connection. Everything is quite nicely connected there. And all the logistics service providers, everybody is established there, where you have a smooth transformation between the modes, and the logistics operations can happen very nicely. So that is the first thing that I want to highlight. And even inside this, there are lots of crazy trends happening around the world. And then I would like to take you back to in your memory lane. This is one of the very developed countries that you all know. And so, of course, it's not from Sri Lanka. So if you went back in your memory lane, you might have experienced these things, right? So you have rice queues and you had gas queues, but then initially we witnessed the fuel queues, and there was the passport queue, and there are so many different queues, right? So if you look at these things and if you think what can be the root causes behind this, if you look at especially from logistics and supply chain perspectives, these are actually, if you cascade down now, like some logistics and supply chain programs. For example, in supply chain, it's about matching the demand and supply, right? So this is a result of a mismatch between demand and supply, right? So for example, if you have more demand and less supply, of course you have queues, end of the day. But behind this, there are so many other problems like dollar issues, policy issues, political issues, etc. But in technical terms, these are pure logistic and supply chain problems, because for me, I see these things as well, and there are solutions for these things. For example, it can be as a country or as an individual, as a company, you have to have a strategy, right? For example, end of the day, it should be the smooth functioning of a country or an organization or a household itself. So for that, you should have a competitive strategy, and that strategy should be aligned with the supply chain strategy. We should have efficiency and responsiveness. For example, if some breakdown happens or pandemic happens, it should be responsive. But behind this, there are very important logistical drivers connected to this decision-making framework. For example, dollar issues can be like related with pricing, and you have sourcing issues, information, facilities, inventory, and transportation. So all these logistical drivers, the beautiful part is it's quite interlinked, right? If you change one part, I don't know, even the small one like inventory, if you change it, then it will affect the other parts as well. That is why, as individuals, as academics, as scientists, we should be able to understand all the changing behaviors of these things, interlinks of these things. When we design a strategy, it can be for a country, for an organization, for the individual life as well. And if you know how these interlinks works properly, then only you can make the best strategies, right? And also, like in logistics, we talk about the 7 Rs, like delivering the right item at the right time, in right quantity, right place, right quality, right? For example, if you order something when you're hungry for lunch, if the delivery comes for dinner, you will be unhappy, right? And if you order something, if they deliver it for breakfast, still you will be unhappy, right? And if you order something, like if you order pizza and to celebrate a birthday, but they have mistakenly delivered, I don't know, rice and curry, still you will be unhappy, right? And if you order pizza, still if the pizza is delivered, if that is cold, then still you will be unhappy. So likewise, a simple example. Likewise, the logistics are all about like satisfying these 7 Rs. But to 7 Rs, there's a huge other work that we have to do is to accomplish these 7 Rs. So if you see, it's like an iceberg. So on the top, you can see the moving containers, warehouses, trucks, and all these things at the top of the iceberg. But behind the iceberg, there are lots of functions related to logistics and supply chain, lots of planning to be done, which is the difficult part, and which is actually most of our jobs are also related to that. That is also interesting because if there's no job, there's no functioning of human life. So even to solve this difficult part, we have these interesting jobs and interesting problems, right? So in logistics, it's all about accomplishing these 7 Rs, connecting to other changing variables in the supply chains, right? And in optimization, we are doing lots of research on these different paradigms of supply chains logistics. And so today we'll be among these, we'll be focusing mainly on distribution logistics and inventory and warehouse problems. And so this is my favorite area. So like drones. So I work quite a lot with drones. And drones are like, I sometimes tell my students, drones are like also like tireless workers. So they can do so many things, right? Nowadays, they can do almost all the logistics functions. Drones, the only thing is they complain is about the energy capacity. Where I don't know in the future you will be having much more like fascinating energy technology. So that blame will be not there as well. But there are so many things that you can do with drones, like from search and rescue to mapping to health supply delivery to consumer goods delivery to passenger mobility and so many different things. Like so, most of these areas actually we have done research and we have done some even pilot studies, implementations. For example, there were some interesting studies like even these illegal migrants, like when they come, like there were some projects that I was doing to catch them, like using drones, and then we have done search and rescue as well. And when there's fire, like we have used drones to save the people and passenger deliveries, etc. So it's quite an interesting area. But even behind that interesting part, there's so much of beautiful mathematical programming and optimization relies. That's the beauty of the part comes from that's how. And for example, this is one of the projects that we are doing in Singapore, and we are initially for the offshore vessels or the ships, it was some of the deliveries are done by small boats, right? There are lots of requirements until the ship comes and berth. They have to stay out offshore, and these things were replaced by drones, like Airbus drones. It was quite interesting project, but this is like like almost a decade old now. But even those days, even countries like Singapore has implemented this, and there are so many other interesting applications. Like this, one in the left is like the zipline drone. Actually, this came to Sri Lanka as well. We did the feasibility study. Like, yeah, most of this blood supply distribution and even human organs and medical supply distribution can be done by this. But when you're about to implement in Sri Lanka, Easter bombing happened. So government prohibited all the drone operations. So they went to Africa and they're doing really well there. And also we have passenger drones, for example, which is from Dubai, which happened like almost 1 decade ago. They have done pilot studies. So maybe in the future, you will be having your own drone to travel to work. I want to go to shopping. And so it's just like a bike. In your family, you might have a drone, passenger drone as well, right? And also, if you have a drone for yourself, maybe your wife will be telling you, why not for a pet? We should buy a drone for a pet as well. So you will be having this, and maybe your day-to-day food consumption as well, you can use it. But the problem is this a sustainable logistics solution, right? But even though this might looks like a little bit funny now, but these things have already done and tested. Pilot studies have been done successfully. So in the future, you can expect these things. And especially in domain of optimization, we are working quite a lot with these drones and also like e-bikes and electric vehicles and so many other vehicles where we use optimization techniques to find the best possible routes. So it can be the energy efficient routes or the time efficient routes. It's an interesting problem where it can be used in, it has been used vastly in all the logistics related companies. And there are lots of projects that we have used. And this is one of the projects that I've done in Denmark. So in Denmark, you have a very flat surface, like you don't have mountains as such, right? So most of the energy is being produced from the windmills, and these windmills are located at offshore in the sea. We call them offshore windmill farms. So these windmill farms, initially everything was transported by ships, which is super costly. So then we wanted to replace it by drones. And then we developed some drones which can carry like more than 100 kilograms, hectocopters, octocopters. And we did some interesting projects to deliver everything by drones. But it was super challenging because where the windmills are, you have very high wind conditions and the weather is changing so fast. So to come up with routing algorithms in these highly changing weather conditions, it was really difficult. And all these drones were initially super expensive. So we should ensure that this should not fall down to the water. Then lots of blame will come to us. And they have limited energy capacity. And as well, like when we fly lots of drones all together, we have to ensure these drones does not collide with each other, right? If that's the case, like lots of cost will be gone off. So considering all these things, actually, we did an interesting project. And the beauty of this problem comes with mathematical optimization, where you have to satisfy your objective function, considering lots of changing variables altogether at the same time and lots of constraints deal with. So I'll not go into detail because it will be super boring to you. But for example, I'll take one thing. For example, let's imagine that if you are a drone and if you're flying against the wind, of course, you have to burn lots of energy. And if you're flying with the wind, you will be burning less energy, right? But when the size of the drone becomes bigger, of course, it becomes more complex. And of course, if you carry more payload, you will burn more energy. And it flies in different altitudes in the sky, which have different densities. So when there are density changes, still the energy consumption changes. And different temperatures, there are lots of battery drain. So even when you want to calculate the energy consumption of a drone, you have to consider so many different variables altogether at the same time, which is quite challenging. So in our research, for example, you have developed some energy models to these things, especially for large drones, which actually now are used pretty much in the industry. So these are very interesting optimization problems. And to further illustrate this, so let's imagine that you have same fleet of drones, the same set of drones, and you want to deliver to same set of customers, same demands, but in 3 different weather conditions. So if you want to do that to find the optimized solution, so for example, if you have a weather condition like that in the first row, so you'll have a solution like this. But if your weather condition change quite slowly, still for the same set of drones, same set of customers, same set of demands, you will have an entire different flight mission. And again, when you change that again, still like for the same set of drones, same set of customers, same set of demands, it will be pretty much changing. So if you even a tiny variable like the change of the weather condition can drastically change the entire mission. So that is why these problems are very beautiful, and we have found lots of interesting algorithms to solve these problems and published in our research. And also in Sri Lanka, we are doing some interesting research with our students. We are in agriculture, tea supply chain, and vegetable supply chain. There are so many interesting case studies that you can do to crop monitoring, pesticides, and fertilizer spraying and things like that. But there are challenges, especially with air traffic controlling, and rules and regulations are not that adapted. But despite that challenge, these technologies are developed so vast. So in the future, you will be seeing these things. And even in Sri Lanka, there are examples. And some of our students have done even for like vaccine distribution and food distribution using drones, and also so many different applications we have done even in some of the students in our department. And then I'll quickly move into warehouse management. So I think that every one of us have a fridge at home. So I would like you guys to invite to imagine your fridge at home. And so have you ever thought like in the fridge, why the fridge is designed in this way? For example, you have different compartments. I don't know to put the frozen items like meat and fish. They have a small part, and you have a drawer at the bottom, and then you have different racks. Have you ever thought why your fridge is designed in this way? Right? And for example, you have different type of food items to be stored, right? So that's why, and for different items, you need different space. And also it depends on how much of people living in your family. And this depends on the consumption patterns. For example, if you have more people like rabbits eating lots of carrots, then you need to have lots of carrots in your fridge, right? And also that is one thing, the consumption rate. The other thing is how frequently you're buying these things. For example, if you're going to the supermarket every day, then you don't have to store quite a lot, right? You can have a very less quantity. But if you're visiting the supermarket, if you're far away, living in a remote area, then you have to travel quite a lot, maybe once a month or something like that. Then you have to have a large quantity, right? So depending on that as well, you have to decide which amount of quantity that you want to store. It's quite similar in the warehouse actually. It's a very good example for a warehouse at home, right? And you have different compartments. For example, when the electricity bills are super high, have you ever thought of minimizing that at homes? I don't know. So if you have tried to do that, then would you just open the fridge and think for a long time and select something and take it out? Or you pre-plan what to buy, take it out and just go close, just open it, take it out and close up. So I don't know. You might have used different energy saving techniques. So it's quite common in a big warehouse as well. So all the technologies are actually related to that. Or for example, it depends. And another thing is, for example, when you store the food at your fridge, so how do you store it? For example, when you buy new carrots, do you store it at the front or at the back? So if you store at the back, it's fine because then you will do the first in, first out warehouse practice. But if you store at the front, every day you will be eating fresh ones. But after some time, you will realize there's lots of rotten like vegetables in your fridge. So these things actually the basics of inventory and warehouse management. And maybe you guys have a very large fridge like this, not like the one that I have at home. So, but when your fridge size becomes larger, your warehouse becomes larger, and you have more problems, more bigger, more problems. But still, we can use this technology and simple warehouse management techniques if you want to solve these things. So even we can use drones, for example, in the large scale warehouses. There are interesting projects that they have done, like using drones. This is actually from Netherlands, but even in our university, we have a lab with a warehouse structure. And for our students, they'll be doing kind of similar things, using drones to get the cycle counting and the inspection. And if you use simple technologies like this, which is not that super costly, it can reduce the time and the cost quite drastically. And also some of our students are doing these things not only in normal warehouses, even cold warehouses as well, like Winlace and Lineage. So we are doing lots of interesting projects. We are using drones to do this cycle counting and all the inspection and barcode scanning, everything, even in Sri Lanka as well. And have you ever thought of using a new technology? I don't know. Everybody's talking about AI and all these things. Have you ever implemented that in your real life? So is there anyone here who have not yet used ChatGPT or any AI tools? I hope that you have used it, right? So one other thing is when everybody is using new technology, then we also want to use new technology. Then we just try to copy and paste. But that actually cannot be done in this industry. You cannot just copy and paste. You can just plug and play these new technologies. There's a serious bit of customization you need to done. If not, then even if you want to do a fancy technology to implement in your organization to enhance the profit, so it'll be ending something like this, which will be super fancy, super tech, but with no results. So that is one of the key things that I want to highlight as well. And also, I would like to take you to these different industrial revolutions. This is one of the onion models developed by one of my PhD students. So industrial revolutions are evolving. So we are now in the era of industry 4.0 and 5.0. And if you go into industry 5.0, all these buzzwords of cyber physical systems, IoT, 3D printing, which is additive manufacturing, big data, cloud computing, everything actually comes from this. It started in Germany, initially from manufacturing sector, but it came across the logistical supply chain domains. So you have these underpinning technologies of these, but still you input the raw materials, energy, information, and take the products and waste, where using this, they claim that you can enhance the efficiency, loss of modularity, loss of responsiveness, agility, and all the interesting parts. So in this, these things can be also accomplished very nicely in the domains of logistical supply chain. For example, the beauty behind this is when you have a problem, you do not need to go directly to the solution. You can replicate the problem in a different environment, like even in simulation, we do this, like in digital twins, we do this. Using these technologies, we can replicate it and we can find a solution virtually as well. And once only when you're satisfied with the problem, only then you can actually do it. This is only very simple illustration of it, but there are so many other things that we can do, right? So Industry 4.0, some people say that's an old story, but now we have Industry 5.0 where the machines and humans work hand in hand together. So those days we have robots, but now we have, for example, cobots, where these robots can work hand in hand with humans, where you have more human-centered technological developments. And so the industry is fastly going toward this domain as well. And we have few interesting training programs as well from this department. If there's anyone interested, they can join. A little bit of marketing. And also we have to focus on the supply chain brain. So maybe in 10 years time, I don't know, 20 years time, when you go for a job interview, maybe along with you, some humanoid robots also might come to the job interview, especially in the domains of logistics and supply chain even, and you have to compete with them, right? So these trends and technologies are growing so fast, where you have this AI, ML, and deep learning concepts severely affecting the supply chain brain. And so, guys, please keep an eye for this. And also the machine customers. So we have lots of automated buyers nowadays, and by 2028, like 15 billion connected products will be with automated buyers. So 20% of revenue will be coming from them as well. So it can be even in your fridge as well. For example, you might have a machine custom at your fridge, so it automatically detects when your milk level is going down, and it automatically put an order to the supermarket. So before the milk finishes, it will come. And just like in the printing industry, like they have already implemented this, is quite popular, where it automatically detects when ink level is reduced. The automated buyers, they purchase, they do everything. You don't have to worry about it, right? So it will come at the right time. So like this, the technology is changing so fast. And also the augmented connected workforce. If you have heard about XR technologies, it started with virtual reality, augmented reality. Now we have XR, especially in warehouse and inventory management. These things are used massively with smart glasses and smart connecting devices. And also you have robots where you can replace the human workforce even in warehouses and logistics. So good examples are the single day delivery boy at US. So Amazon started this. So like even during the last couple of years, they initially started, for example, when you order something across US, anywhere in Europe, anywhere in US, doesn't matter what is the product. If you order, they'll be ensuring like it will be delivered within 24 hours. It doesn't matter what location you're ordering, what product you're ordering. If you order something, it will become, right? So that started with AWS, Amazon, and then it was followed by Walmart and Target as well. So we call them the single day delivery board. Thanks to this, actually, lots of AI came into logistics and warehouses. For example, if you order so many different type of product at the same time, so AI detects your order patterns, and then it generates the pickup lists in the warehouse, and the robots go and pick everything for you, and the package will be ready for delivery in very, very quick time. So the industry is quite fastly revolutionizing thanks to these technologies. And also additive layer manufacture, I must mention this, like those days we are so fascinated of CAD/CAM, but nowadays turning into metal 3D printing, for example, the industry like spare parts, like you cannot have it without 3D printers nowadays. And even if you're passionate, you can buy a 3D printer for very little amount of money, and you can get the raw material from PETA, and you can try it at home as well nowadays. And the other thing is the humanoid robots, which is I'm quite fascinated about. So I have interesting videos, but I don't have time to show them, like especially in the manufacturing industries, logistics and supply chains. Now these humanoid robots are taking place. I saw a few videos like from BMW, actual implementation, like complete removal of some of the workforce using humanoid robots. And so if you don't have any servants to help you at home, maybe don't worry. Now in the future, you can have some of these to help, and they'll do whatever you ask. And yeah, so Professor Nilas was telling about my research. So I'm quite interested in logistics, but I'm exploring the other domains of maritime logistics, aviation logistics, and multimodal logistics. And also I'm doing interesting research on the domains of robotic process automation and food technology, and also biomedical engineering as well. So different domains I'm exploring, but I'm mainly focusing. This is my most important and close to heart area. That's I was going to share today. I'm sharing today, and we have some publications that's I need to tell. So to the end, so I would like to thank few people, especially my family, my wonderful family, my loved parents, my father being a banker and my mother being a mathematics teacher. Like I think they crafted us quite well. They put lots of effort in like making who are we are today. And this is my brother and sister. They are much better researchers and much better scientists than me. And my loved wife and my kids. So hopefully my daughter, when you grow up, maybe you can see this. If this is published online, right? And my loving grandma. So these are the main people behind my family who bared with me with all the crazy things that I've done. So they had lots of patience with me to to all the things that I've done. And then especially my TLME family. So we had a wonderful department, and we have lots of great people who pioneered this department, starting from Professor Amal, Professor Asoka Pereira, and Indika sir, Amila sir is present here, Dr. Seva, and all the senior academic staff and non-academic staff. So they have done lots of things to make all these achievements possible that have done by us. They have given remarkable support to us. One of the pictures that which we wanted to create TLM in the beach, it was from my batchmates. So, and other than that, I would like to thank especially to my family in Europe, all my supervisors and my colleagues, especially the great professors Vignio Banashak and Professor Peter Nielsen, Isabella Nielsen, and Professor Greshek Bukevis, and all these great people. Even now, like whatever the crazy things I do, they are right behind me and supporting me for everything that I do. So thank you so much for that. And finally, so my biggest strength is my students. So without my student, I couldn't have done anything. So this is not all my students, some of my initial postgraduate and undergraduate students. Actually, when I joined the university, one of the reasons I actually at the university is the students. So their passion, dedication, motivation, commitment, their enthusiasm is like super great. And so that's why, like even from the undergraduate levels, like we could do lots of even Q1 publications, and like all our postgraduate students have done fantastically well. They have finished their master, and most of them are doing the best PhDs in the world. So in the future, hopefully they'll become like much more great researchers than us, hopefully, and professors if they come back to industry. So this is the biggest strength actually. So I want to give a special gratitude and thank to our beloved students. Without them, I think none of these things and the achievements would not be possible. And finally, so I'd like to show a picture, that one of my favorite pictures. Like, so when you look this, you might be think that it's not possible. It's funny. So, and maybe even though this looks funny, this is possible because when I was living Denmark in around 2019, there were projects that we were doing to take these heavy concrete structures of the windmill farms from the ground to the offshore windmill farms using heavy lifting drones. Those days also they could carry like 1 or 2 tons. So in the future, when we want for the Perahara, we want elephants. So we can use a drone from India to take elephants to I don't know. So even though this looks funnier, but these things might be not be impossible in the future. So the technology is developing so fast in that way, in that magnitude. So we will have a super crazy, interesting future, especially with logistics and supply chain in the future. So from that note, so I'd like to conclude, and thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Amila Thibbotuwawa, for your enlightening utterance on the future of smart logistics. Your expertise and valuable insights have truly enriched our session today. As a token of appreciation for Professor Amila Thibbotuwawa's remarkable contribution through this thought-provoking lecture, I'd now like to invite Professor Ranil Sugatadas to present the lecture memento to our distinguished professor for the day. Additionally, I'd also like to invite Professor Amila Thibbotuwawa to accept the lecture memento. A heartfelt thank you to Dr. Thibbotuwawa and Professor Amila Thibbotuwawa. And with that, as we approach the conclusion of today's session, I'd like to take a moment to extend our sincere appreciation to the sponsors of the 34th inaugural lecture. Cargill's Private Limited, our event sponsor; Daily FT, our print media sponsor; the Sri Lankan Scientist, our social media sponsor. And with that, we officially conclude today's inaugural lecture. Thank you all for being a part of this insightful session. Stay connected with us as we bring you yet another thought-provoking session in the upcoming 35th inaugural lecture. Have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you.